World of Warships Legends is now 7 years old, and I can't even tell you how many times over the past 7 years that wargaming has buffed the Vanguard. Well, in the August 2026 update to World of Warships Legends, they've gone and they've buffed it again. And you might pause for a second when you hear me say that, because if you read the Ministry of Balance article, you'll have noticed that in this balance change to Vanguard, there were several buffs, but there were also several nerfs. So it might be more accurate to call this update to the ship a rework or a rebalancing. In fact, that is how the Ministry of Balance article refers to it. It says, quote, Vanguard has received numerous buffs over the years, but they have not had the desired effect. The ship has remained very different from the rest of the original British battleship line, so we are rebalancing her to bring her more in line with her predecessors. Now, of course, we'll talk about the details of that rebalance, but I'll say that I don't know if the goal was to bring Vanguard more in line and make it fit better between the King George at Tier 6 and the Temeraire at Tier 8. I don't know that that has been super successful. I mean, just on a very surface level, if you were to line up the King George, the Vanguard, and the Temeraire side by side, the Vanguard would definitely be the odd one out. Both the King George and Temeraire look like they could have come from the same legacy of battleship design as far as their hulls, their turret placements, the number of guns. And the thing that I think fits most comfortably between the two of them is probably the Monarch, which of course is a Tier 7 Global XP ship. That would probably make more sense as the Tier 7 tech tree instead of Vanguard, but that is just not the world we live in. So here we are with this new rework. Now, well, of course, we'll talk about the details, but before we get into the actual numbers, I will tell you that I have not changed my Vanguard build at all. I'm still running the John Fisher build that I was probably running the last time I made a video on this ship, and I'll show you that build here in a moment, but first we have to see if we can't take out these enemy destroyers. We get a fairly okay hit on the Osborne, but then we're going to have to switch our fire to the Orcon out there. He is on pretty low health. Once our turret comes back online, well, I guess it doesn't, so we'll just fire 3 of them, and that is nearly enough to take out that destroyer. Gets finished off by the friendlies there. Osborne still floating around. We'll take one more shot at him. The accuracy, not good at all. No shells hit. No shells even come all that close, really. Another shot before we go here around this island, and once again, I think a miss. Vanguard does have some questionable accuracy from time to time. Sometimes you get accuracy like that. Sometimes it looks like laser beams. Ultimately, we do get a hit on the Osborne. Looks like maybe even a perma-fire. Well, no, he DCP'd. Anyway, the build, we've got John Fisher at the helm, and we've got Kondo and Kedrov as his 2 inspirations. One of his skills in the second row, keep in mind, it's called Dance with Death. It reduces the main battery reload time per 1% HP lost. And by far, the biggest change to Vanguard was the reload time. Previously, the ship had a reload booster for some reason. They added that reload booster years ago, but at first only gave it 1. More recently, they upped the balance of reload boosters to 2, but those are completely gone now, and they've been replaced by defensive AA instead. But as compensation, part of this rework included reducing the base main battery reload time from 25 to 20 seconds. Now, as you can see here, against this Bismarck B, it is loading in, I think, about 16 seconds. Now, it'll increase here in a moment. But with this John Fisher build, and with the reload module in the 4th slot, our reload time is 17.4 seconds. And of course, that Dance with Death skill reduces the reload further as we get less HP. So we were at 16, we just deployed one of our heals. It'll be a little bit longer than that now as we go into brawling mode with the Bismarck B, which is maybe not something that the Vanguard excels at, brawling that is. And also, I should note, Target selection is an important thing. If we shot at that Bismarck B, we wouldn't do all that much damage to him. That Osborne was still out there available to shoot, much more important target to take down. So we get some damage on him before we return to the Bismarck and temporarily delete one of his turrets. It'll come back online soon enough, but as you can see, he is reversing, and it might look to you like we're going in for the ram, but we're not. We are going to try to get around the other side of the Bismarck. You can see his rear turrets are pointed toward the side that we were on. So I thought we go to the other side. He probably can't get his turrets traversed quickly enough. Maybe we can get ours traversed quickly enough and go for the drive-by. Can't quite nail the execution here, though. Trying to fire the guns, they don't fire. Turrets aren't quite on target. We do get at least one of the rear ones, but it's not enough. No need to panic, though. Bismarck's turrets on the back, at least, are still rotating. And now that we've been reduced to even less HP in this tiny little brawl, probably thanks in large part to Bismarck's secondaries and I suppose the main guns, well, now our reload is really, really quick. It should be somewhere around 15 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe even lower than that. Rear turrets are off sync. That shot does not sink Bismarck, but the second shot will. And we come out of the brawl alive with a little bit of HP left and the ability to utilize one of the heals and obtain something like 4 to 5 bars more of HP. That was another change they made to Vanguard. They reduced the number of repair parties from 3 base to 2. They massively increased the cooldown time from 80 seconds to 2 whole minutes flat, which feels really bad if you need one of those heals on short notice and it's still on cooldown. But at the same time, the heal restores, I think, more HP than the previous one. I can't remember the parameters, really, of the previous heal, but this new one restores 1,132 HP per second for a duration of 20 seconds. It's basically a super heal with a long cooldown, and I can't really remember if that's in line with the rest of the British tech tree battleships, but it provides Vanguard with, I suppose, some more tankiness. I guess there's 2 ways you can tank in this game. You can have an armor scheme that's good enough to shatter and bounce a lot of shells, or you can have a more light armored scheme that is susceptible to light damage, like HE penetrations and fire. You can absorb that damage and then reprint your HP if you've got a heal like this. Vanguard is pretty good at doing that, of course. And there's also some other changes. They have nerfed the HP. Used to be 71,700. It's 67,000 now. Of course, they removed the main battery reload booster, replaced it with DFAA, and they also increased the HE shell damage and fire chance. HE shells now hit for 6,500, 44% fire chance. And on top of all of this, we have a absolutely absurd and ridiculous 9.7 second rudder shift time. It used to be previously 13. Essentially, I think what they've done is sort of make the Vanguard into a mini Thunderer. The AP remains just as good as it ever was, especially against Tier 6 battleships. Just ask the North Carolina out there. But now, with this ridiculous reload, coupled with the John Fisher build, you can sling HE downfield very quickly. You can take advantage of broadsides, especially when ships are in a turn. A lot of people probably would not expect a battleship with 15-inch guns to be reloading in the same amount of time as some heavy cruisers, maybe even quicker than that. North Carolina, for his part, is getting shredded by the AP. And if you've got something that the AP is not all that effective against, well then you can just switch to the HE and utilize your 44% fire chance and the excellent damage that the HE does, and then just repeatedly shoot it at targets to get perma-fires, especially if you're reloading every 17 seconds. This is perhaps now one of the best HE spammers on the British battleship line. And on top of all that, it is a very maneuverable ship that you can get and take into close quarters like we did against the Bismarck and like we're about to do against the Colorado. The biggest problem with Vanguard, though, still remains the firing angles. Those were also slightly buffed, I believe, during this rework. And so you can fire a little bit better forward and I think a little bit better in a kiting position than you previously could. But you still have to get way too much broadside showing to the enemy to get all of the turrets on target. And if you do that, Vanguard Citadel remains very easy to hit and damage for a lot. The ship is probably pretty dev strikeable if you get broadside in it, maybe even more so than other battleships. However, if you have a 9.7-second rudder shift time, you can open and close the angle at will. This is the most agile battleship in the game now, so even if your firing angles are not 100% ideal, you can play around those simply by utilizing the rudder. Now that means you can't be just sitting still bow tanking all the time, but you really shouldn't be in a ship like this. It wants to move around the map, and it wants to play sort of, I guess, like a ultra heavy cruiser with really good AP and really good HE spamming capabilities. Haven't done too much HE spamming in this particular match. That might be because we are against tier 6s. But the Vanguard now is a certified bully of all tier 6 ships. We win this battle with 188,000 damage done, the high caliber, the Confederate metal, and an unusual amount of brawling for HMS Vanguard. I would say, overall, this rebalancing still amounts to a buff. We've just got an excellent heal now, we've got an absurd reload time, and we've got ridiculous maneuverability. In spite of the nerfs to things like the HP, I think the Vanguard is a very good ship now in 2026. If you haven't played it for a while, I suggest taking it out. It is not what you remember if you're thinking of the absolute abomination that it was in the early days of the game. It is excellent now, I think. And yeah, so hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.